In the winter of 1984, the most powerful men in Europe gathered in Berlin around a single great map of Africa, a continent to which not one African had been invited. The story goes that they carved it up that winter around that table. That story is wrong. What actually happened was slower, stranger, and far more deadly. To see what they did, you first have to see Africa as it was. By 1880, Europeans had traded on these coasts for 400 years, yet held barely a tenth of the continent, almost all of its shoreline. France had pushed inland in Algeria. Britain held the Cape and a handful of forts. Portugal clung to the edges of Angola and Mozambique. Beyond them lay a continent of nations. The Sokoto Caliphate, larger than France, the Kingdom of Asande, Ethiopia, the Zulu, Buganda, the Merchant Sultanate of Zanzibar. Africa was not empty, it was simply, to the European eyes, unclaimed. The man who lit the fuse was not a general, but a king in search of an empire. Leopold II of Belgium refused a colony by his own government. He set out to seize one privately. He hired the explorer, Henry Morton Stanley, to sail the Congo River and gather signatures. More than 400 treaties pressed on chiefs who could not read them, handing their land not to Belgium but to Leopold himself. As France, Britain and Portugal rushed to stake their rival claims, the scramble threatened to tip into a European war. To keep the peace and a share for Germany, Chancellor Otto von Bismarck called a conference. On the 15th of November 1984, 14 delegations sat down in Berlin, Germany. France, Britain, Portugal, Italy, the United States, and Leopold's own private association, dressed up as a charity. Not one African ruler was present. When the Sultan of Zanzibar asked to attend, he was turned away. For more than 3 months they negotiated, and here is the thing that the story forgets. They did not draw Africa's borders. They wrote a rulebook: free trade across the Congo Basin, free navigation of the Congo and the Niger, and one rule that would set the continent alight: that to keep a claim in Africa, a power now had to occupy it, in person, with administration, treaties and troops on the ground. That single rule was a starting gun. To own Africa, you had to occupy it before your rivals could. So the powers raced inland, planting flags, signing treaties at gunpoint, drawing lines through enemy territory they had never seen. The thin coastal holdings of 1880 swelled into vast claims that drove deep into the interior. In barely 20 years, the map of a continent was redrawn. By the turn of the century, the lines were nearly complete. France took the West and the Sahara, an empire of desert and savanna larger than Europe itself. Britain stitched together a chain of red from the Cape towards Cairo. Germany seized 4 colonies on 3 coastlines. Portugal kept its ancient strongholds on either flank. Italy carved out its first colonies on the Horn, and at the centre of it all, an expanse the size of Western Europe remained the personal property of one man: Leopold's Congo. The map was an achievement. What lay beneath it was not. In Leopold's Congo, the prize was rubber, and the method was terror. His private army held families hostage and demanded severed hands as proof that bullets had been spent on people, not game. How many died is still bitterly disputed. Some historians estimate around 10 million, half the population. Others put the number far lower. What is beyond dispute is that this was a colony of death. And far to the south, in German Southwest Africa, the Kaiser's army issued a written order to wipe out the Herero people. Driven into the desert and the camps. As many as 8 in 10 were killed. The first genocide of the 20th century. By 1914, the scramble was over. 9/10 of Africa flew a European flag. Just 2 nations remained free. Liberia, founded by freed American slaves, and Ethiopia, which in 1896, on the field of Adwa, had done one thing no one believed an African army could. It met an invading European army and destroyed it. Everywhere else, borders drawn by strangers had hardened into facts on the ground. The empires themselves did not last. Within a lifetime, almost every one of these colonies would win its independence, but the lines stayed exactly where they were drawn. Look at the map of Africa today. Straight borders slicing through deserts and peoples, nations bound to old enemies. And you are looking at the work of that Berlin rulebook, and the treaties that followed it. Frontiers fixed by men who would never see the land they divided. The scramble ended more than a century ago. Its map is still on the wall.